Succession is over, and as a Kendall Hive supporter, I am in shambles. Yesterday I released a review of the Barry finale, but for the Succession finale, which of course came out on the same day, I had to wait a little longer because, first of all, I just like this show more, and second of all, I really had to think about it. Like, really. This is a thinker. It's a 90-minute episode. There's a lot to dissect. Succession is a business drama about Logan Roy, CEO of Waystar, and his children. However, Logan has been dead for a bit. He died, so there's a lot that's been going on not related to him, and it's all ended in this final episode where Kendall, Roman, and Shiv all decide who's gonna win, and none of them do. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know things mostly don't go well for these very dislikable characters, and so in the end, they all sort of lose, and at first I didn't know how to feel about that. The winner of it all is Tom Wamsgans, and to the Wamsgansers out there, congratulations, but for me, I've been Kendall Hive, like I said, and I was really expecting him to win. I feel like a lot of people expected that hollow Kendall victory after all of the losses that he suffered every single time, but we should have known because he just lost again. And it is a little strange that Tom became the CEO, despite the fact that the idea of him becoming the CEO was basically established in this episode, but I don't mind it, because it honestly really works in the story the more that I think about it. This show is incredible at season finales. Just like Barry, my favorite episode of the show is probably still the season 3 finale, and I was having high hopes. Of course I was. I wanted this show to end as well as it could, and I wanted this season to end as well as it could, because it always does. One thing I'm happy that this episode managed to do is fan service, to some extent. All of the character relationships that have been built up have been basically paid off. The Tom-Greg relationship, which I correctly predicted in my last video on Succession, that Greg would betray Tom, that happened, and it ended with the classic, Tom puts the little sticker on Greg's head and basically says he owns him, because those were the stickers from earlier that Connor said you put on items to say that you own them. It's great. And that is the end to that relationship. It's iconic. It's perfect. Then on the other side, you have all of the siblings, and they're meeting for about the first half of the episode. We see other characters, but they're all together for a good amount of it, and that is great. Every season, you tend to get a Roy siblings bonding moment. So first in season 1, you get the boat scene. Then in season 2, you get in the finale we're going to talk about our feelings scene. And then in season 3, also in the finale, you get the moment on the beach, which is one of my favorite scenes in the entire show. And going into season 4, you had this obviously not long-lasting relationship between the three of them when they were looking to actually start their own business after being cut out of Logan's in the previous season. You get the 100, which was goofy as hell, the way Kendall described it. I honestly would like to see a spin-off show about that, Kendall tries to start up his life again after this historic failure by recreating the 100. I'd watch. And so eventually, since the relationship could never actually work out, Shiv is the one who gets cut out. And then in this episode, there's a lot of interesting work done with Shiv. I think she has one of my favorite arcs throughout this episode. I think it's like her and Kendall. As you can infer from what I've been saying, Tom becomes the CEO in the end. The American CEO, while Lucas Mattson, takes over the company, successfully pulling off the deal that he's been trying to do since the season 3 finale. And the thing is, it was meant to be Shiv, and then Shiv's name gets erased from the document, and Shiv is now on her brother's side. And this moment is both really funny to me and also kind of perfect. It happens so quickly, but it makes sense, because of course Shiv would switch sides in an instant when she feels disrespected, because that's very Shiv, and I think it's very fair at the same time. Being cut out of this deal, even though it's something she probably should have seen coming, it makes sense that she would immediately switch over to Ken and Roman, and we get to see their wholesome moments for the rest of it until things go wrong. During this, we also see Roman, who has a very interesting arc this episode, on account of not really actually having one. Roman has kind of been on an acceptance arc for the past 2 episodes, and now we're really in a place where it's like, wow, Roman does not want to be in this business anymore. When they finally find him at Caroline's house, he's like wearing a $13 shirt and just complaining about being the vote. Basically, he probably doesn't even want to vote in this, and he's just going with whatever they tell him to do. So in the end, when they decide it's going to be Kendall, he's like, okay, sure, so that he can move on. During this section, we get Roman's $13 shirt arc, as he's kind of just been in an acceptance period since the funeral, that even the smallest thing, such as crying at your father's funeral, can kind of ruin him. He can't really be the CEO anymore, as Ken outlines for him, but he could have still won if he didn't have weird morals this episode. It's kind of weird to see Roman actually stick up for Shiv, which is something he's probably only done like once or maybe twice throughout the entire show, but the way that he does it, the way that he approaches it, it's like Roman is likable. Maybe not. I still think he obviously needs time, but the fact that he seems like the only character to actually completely separate himself from the business life and want to actually move on and have a new life with the Jerry Martini scene, it's kind of seeming like Roman is trying to turn things around. Hey, he's still a fascist, but, I'll always be rooting on Roman Roy, because he's just so fun to watch. Okay, so then there's Kendall, and Kendall is my favorite character in the show. Kendall has been my favorite character in the show, and I think that's why I root him on. Kendall is my favorite, and he is the most tortured on the show, I'd say, probably. I mean, like, who else are you going to put up against him? Kendall has been through some horrible shit, and he's my favorite character to watch, and so I've been rooting him on from the beginning. He loses this episode. He loses big to the point where I feel like a lot of people thought he was going to kill himself. And that is really hard to watch. But so is he. Yeah, Kendall Hive had a bad episode because not only do we have to see our man lose, but we also have to see our man be at his fucking worst. This guy is really annoying in this episode. Sure, you get the likable and fun scenes with Roman and Shiv, but as soon as Ken realizes he has a chance of getting the CEO role, he's just all for it, all bombs away everything in, and he's very annoying about it. The first thing that he does when he gets to Caroline's house is, like, yell at Roman, "I thought you were on my side," when he hasn't really even done anything. It's really rude. Ken's really an asshole in this episode, but of course he is. It's still very fun to watch, and I think the moment that Shiv finally decided that Ken has to go out is when he decided to not even do the vote. There's a moment pretty much no one talks about in which Ken sits down at the table right before the vote and says, "Do we even have to do it? I mean, we've got the numbers." And Shiv sort of just looks at him like, come on. Everyone kind of looks at him like, come on. And it's a very Logan thing. It's such as Season 1, Episode 6, where Logan basically just refused to leave the room, even though that's literally against the rules, and he had to. He just made up a dumb excuse. It was a very Logan move, and he's not his dad. I think since I have now talked about all three of the siblings, I think I'm just going to get straight into that final confrontation. Shiv, with a 6-6 vote, leaves the room and says, "I need to think about it," which at first seems like bullshit, but then you think about it and you realize, yeah, it is the better play to push away Kendall and Roman at the same time, although it's not like he actually really wants to do much, and go with Tom instead. Sure, Shiv might be in a mutually abusive, disgusting, horrible relationship where they've been screaming at each other for basically the entire season, but she has a better chance of winning. She has a better chance of moving up in the company if she goes with Tom. She's the wife, not the sister, and I feel like the sister is much easier to push away. So it's a good plan, even if at first it seems like it's ruining all of Kendall's plans. And then he starts pulling some crazy shit. This is sort of like Kendall in Season 1, Episode 1, ripping up the bathroom, except there isn't a bathroom, and instead he has to rip up everything in front of people. So the first thing that he does is kind of just go into a screaming match with Shiv, going, "I am the eldest boy," and looking like a child, which is something he does a lot, but this is really cartoonish. Then he starts lying about the waiter's death, which is something that had to come up this episode. It hadn't come up for the rest of the season, and just the fact that it exists has to come up. And during this screaming match, Shiv brings up the fact that he can't be the CEO because he killed someone, which is pretty much fair. If that ever were to leak, it would basically tank the entire company. And plus, Shiv and Roman, more than ever, are fully aware that Kendall has been and always will be in a horrible mental state unless he gets help. And if he's in the CEO position, he's not getting fucking help. Roman is actually on Ken's side until he starts lying. Ken says that the waiter thing was never even true. He never actually got in the car. He just, met the guy, and he over-exaggerated it so that they would have this heartwarming moment, which is a horrible thing to say. It's a very horrible thing to lie about. Quickly, Roman switches sides, and then you really realize it's all over when Ken, assaults Roman, which actually isn't his first time in the episode. Earlier, he had this very uncomfortable and weird scene where he opens up Roman's stitches on purpose so that Roman doesn't look professional enough to be the CEO of the company, which looked like he was murdering him. He was not, but it looked weird. And then here he kind of just tries to beat him up, which is so childish. They are children, as shown in earlier in the episode. It was cute and fun there. Now it's just fucking brutal. The way Kendall ends the episode is absolutely fantastic. He goes into the elevator, and I feel like a lot of people were thinking, oh, he actually pressed the ground floor button. He didn't. It was a different guy, a very happy-looking guy, who walked in and pressed the ground floor button. Kendall didn't press any buttons, which implies some very dark things. Then Ken just decides to mirror everything in, the entire show. He goes out into the public after this big loss, like Season 1, Episode 6. He is followed by Colin into basically the same place where Logan was in Season 4, Episode 1, and he interacts with water, a ton of episodes. It's a really rough way for things to end, and I'm 75% sure he's gonna kill himself tweet is becoming more and more clear as time goes on. I think I'm very happy we don't see what happens after this. And you know what? I hope he does well, but it does not look like he's ever going to do well, because Kendall literally said, if I don't do this, I might die. And it just shows how unhealthy things have become. On a lighter note, let's look at the winners, Tom and Greg. Okay, Greg's sort of not a winner, but the fact that he's still in the company is a big move, you know? So, Tom meets with Mattson, who just bluntly tells him, Shiv can't be the CEO because I would probably fuck her, and she would probably fuck me, and that would be really bad. And Tom just takes this like a boss. He completely moves on from it, acts like it didn't even happen, and then Mattson offers him the American CEO job. You already know he gets it. I don't even need to be dramatic about this. Tom does this meeting fairly well, as what Mattson is clearly looking for is somebody who will, basically just get beat up by the public, and Tom does that so much, and so he just takes it. He takes it in stride, says, yeah, I kind of just do that all the time. And Mattson clearly is going to give him this position. Immediately afterward, we get Greg with probably my favorite comedic beat of the episode, Greg's stupid fucking translator app. This translator app is absolutely hilarious. It's so funny that he would be the one who would have this, but he walks in, kind of socializes with Mattson and Oscar for a couple seconds, and then just pulls out his translator app, translates their conversation in Swedish, and learns that Shiv is not going to be the CEO. He then calls Kendall, who relays the information to Shiv, who finds out that it's true, and that starts everything up there. That's also where we get the buckle up line, which I'm sure everyone thought was going to be said to Tom, but it was actually said to Kendall. Pretty crazy. However, in the end, things don't really work out. Tom pretty quickly discovers that Greg betrayed him when he, for some reason, just reveals to Shiv that he's the American CEO replacing her. I don't think he needed to do that, but he does. And then the whole thing happens. Tom becomes CEO nonetheless, and Greg is put in a really tough situation because Mattson is probably going to demote him, and he will be, quote, the highest paid assistant, of all time. And that's not good for Greg, so Tom decides he's going to keep him in. He puts the little sticker on his head, and that's the end of their whole arc. Tom then gets in the car with Shiv, and they have the little hand moment where they put each other's hands over each other, but I think they can try to make it work. Will it work? No. Probably not. Whatever. I think that Tom and Shiv are probably in the best positions of the main characters, and then Mattson is just looming over all of them because he's the boss now. And that is a really uncomfortable thing to deal with, knowing he sends people with his blood. But yeah, that's basically the finale summary. I mean, it's a really good episode. It's a really long episode. It's a really difficult episode to watch. See, for the first 45 minutes, it's actually not that bad because, it's stressful, and then you learn, Kendall's going to be CEO, and then you just get the nice scene of them all eating Peter's cheese, and it's like, yeah, this is just kind of fun to watch. And then they get back home, and everything is on because something is going to go wrong. Kendall has gotten fucked over in every single finale. Even if in the Season 2 finale he ended with a win, he first started by getting fucked over, and it's crazy that he still doesn't get a happy ending. My boy! This season has really shown the Roy siblings' relationships better than ever, because they've been together basically the entire time. While in Season 1 you have just Kendall claiming for the throne, and Shiv in Season 2, and Roman in Season 3, this time around you kind of get all of them at the same time. And with Logan's early death in the early episodes of Season 4, and then Ken becoming CEO and Roman becoming CEO in the very next episode, the thing is, we all knew something was gonna go wrong. They can't really live without Logan. And so this happening is just not ever gonna go well for anyone, and it doesn't really. I gotta say, though, I really like the idea of St. Paul, Minnesota man winning after everyone told him right after Logan's death that there was one guy polling for him and he's just out of the picture now. It was a great moment. However, speaking of Logan, one of my favorite scenes in the episode has got to be the scene of the Roy siblings plus Willa watching the TV with Logan and Connor and everyone and Carl from a couple weeks back, I guess. It's just so magnificent. It's the last time we see Brian Cox in this show, and it hit me so hard. Listen, Logan might be rude and abusive, sometimes a little dumb, and also kind of racist, but I feel for the guy. I miss Logan so much. He is also my boy. They're all my boys. I love these characters, and I miss them so much. I'm going to miss all of them. And Logan, I haven't gotten much content from this season, and then you get that, and it warms my heart to see my guy. Plus, the crazy thing is, he seemed happy. He seemed like he was having a good time. Everyone seemed like they were having a good time. And seeing Kendall, Roman, Shiv, even Connor crying at the TV, it just, Listen, I know, we saw a lot from the siblings. We saw a lot of their relationships. I think that was my favorite emotional scene of the episode. My favorite wholesome, oh, this is so nice type scene. That one really hit me. I really love it so much. Plus, it gave Connor something to do in this episode. Obviously, Connor's never really going to have much, but the fact that they go to his house for a bit, which is actually Logan's house, but now it's Willa's, which is really funny. I think that's great. I think it was incredible. Really great addition. And it is just crazy to think that this show is gone. The show never dipped in quality. I mean, sure, you can say that it dipped at the literal beginning with, the first 5 episodes, but after that, it's never been less than incredible, and I love it, and it's so sad that it's gone. TV is over now, by the way, and I'm going to be coming back to this show. I said I was going to be coming back to Barry. I'm going to be coming back to this show even more. It's long as hell. It's really long, much longer than Barry, which can literally all be watched in one day. And I think I'm probably going to rewatch the whole thing over the summer and then rewatch it all again. I'm not going to be able to move on. I'm never going to be able to move on because, to be honest, this kind of changed me. Movies and TV being my biggest interest, Succession was a part of that, and it will continue to be a part of that. And analyzing this show will help me to, gain a new light. It's corny, but it's just so good. It's such a good show. I love these characters. I'm sad to see them go, but the way they went out, beautiful. They didn't let me down. Not at all. Plus, I will say, just to end things off, I think season 4, despite not being my favorite season, I think it's still season 3 for me, is the most consistent season of the entire show. It really is. My least favorite episode was probably Honeymoon States, and that is the best shit. It's so good. I love this show. I love this show. I would recommend. Just please watch it. I know I just spoiled like the whole ending, but watch it again. If you've already watched it, watch it again. Okay? You're not going to be disappointed. It's good on rewatch too.